Welcome to Friday night's video in our Master Series. This is the 60th video in our Master Series, the 30th video in our first phase processing, and the third video in our bodybuilding and spatialization reverberation step in first phase processing. So you'll kind of have to bear with me on this video. I might ramble a little bit because what we're trying to do, we've just basically done the last bit of actual sound sculpting on the audio in our processing, and hopefully that you experiment with that and understand that at this point you, hopefully with what I've told you, have got some awesome stuff that you've sound sculpted in your processing that just sounds just cool, bro. I really hope it does. And you can ask me any questions you have about it. The next step is we're trying to put things in their place. So always remember that, in my opinion, is that when we put this stuff on the track, that you don't want to render this. So just kind of keep in mind that there's not a whole lot of sound sculpting going on. So normally I'll either make this a preset, like I've got in my DAW that will go, I set up a reverb and a delay to do this, and then I have a section to where I can store this FX chain. That way that I can take it off when I do my maximization and things like that on the track, once I get it set up basically the way I want it. And then I store the FX chain so I can take it off the track, and all the settings are set the way they're supposed to be for later on when I'm mixing. So just kind of keep that in mind. The other thing is to remember that you're going to want to do this to each one of the tracks you're working on so that they all sound like they're in the same space. And sometimes when you're mixing that you're going to use less or more of each one of these effects. And keep in mind that if I set this up to where I've got the reverb and the echo effect set the same, that if I use more or less, I turn each one of them up or down the same amount to try to cause them to be deeper or more forward in the track or in the production. So just kind of keep that in mind. So basically what we're looking at here, this is a very difficult thing to teach because there are so many things involved. You get so many plugins that got so much crap that they'll do, with all due respect to the manufacturer, that, I mean, they're doing audio engineering a lot of times, and a production doesn't need that much audio engineering. I mean, I love audio engineering, but sometimes you can just over audio engineer stuff. And trust me, because if you ask anybody that knows me, that they will, oh, Captain Neo and MATLAB. Yeah, you just want to be over engineered, just go see him. No doubt about it, bro. Some of them will tell you that, because I love audio engineering, but sometimes it's just too much stuff to try to get some simple thing done that you want to do, because you're over processing and overdoing things to where it's starting to just cause a mess. So kind of keep that in mind. But when we're getting into a space, this is a real simple concept. And the understanding of it is normally I will start out either with my convolution reverb. You'll have to understand that it reverbs, that if it's a plate reverb or a spring reverb or doing something, I might use it. Or if I'm using it on dialogue or something like that, I might pull out one of my standard reverbs. But for the most part, I love my convolution reverb, and I don't care, because it's what I use. You know, if I want spring reverb or plate reverb or some other thing going on, I have impulse responses to emulate that. So I don't really fuss with a lot of that other stuff because I don't see no point in it. It's just like when I talked about using a parametric EQ, why using other things, I use this for the most part. But there are some instances that I will use other reverbs. So the understanding of this is the first thing you want to do. Again, loop an area. And sometimes you want to loop it past an area. Like, let's say I got this area here and I want to cut this out. So I mean, I'll move this out of the way here, or I'll either move this out of the way so that it's not in the way, so I can loop this to where it's going past that some, so I can hear what kind of reverberation effect it's having on it. So it's just not hitting those few words, but it tails out a little bit, so I can hear what's going on at the end of it. And sometimes just stopping it. Sometimes you'll be playing it and looping it, you know, and looping it through there. And if you just stop it, you'll be able to hear the reverberation effect and the spatialization effect echo off. So, and those are, you know, key points to try to help you, you know, get it set the way you want it. So, a long story short, that I've learned that this process used to be very complicated for me. Now it's very simple. What I, for the most part, do is I start looping it and listening to it. And I'm listening to the textures. As you get better, you'll understand what impulse responses you have that work better. I've figured out that for the most part, I've got some impulse responses that I really like. I've created some impulse responses with my C50 clarity guides that we've talked about, and on some of them I've actually cut out the frequency content of the impulse response, the frequency response, so that they're flat, so that they don't interfere with the sound I'm working on. And I've got some other ones. I've got the St. Petersburg Cathedral, Taj Mahal, and I've got a few other ones that I'll use in heavy or lightly that I like, that have really nice, rich, thick textures. I think I probably got 10 of them that I use, and I don't use any other ones. Unless we're talking about cabinets or something like that, that I've got tons of different types of cabinets for, like amp sims and things like that. But I don't have very many of them. I'd be honest with you about it. And let's say on this, I want this to be like in the Taj Mahal. Kind of. Okay, well, this is the Taj Mahal. We can pretend that you've got one that you really like that's like this jazz club. For me, I probably would be using one of my created responses. But let's say you've chosen a jazz club. And, for me, I probably would have cut it down to at least C50, 50 milliseconds. And I'm going to choose that sound. So basically what the concept is, you want to A-B this back and forth with and without this and see what it's doing to the sound. Is it having a positive effect on it, or is what's going on in that impulse response you're using having a good effect or not? Sometimes normal reverbs won't affect it that way, but convolution reverbs sometimes will, so you really got to kind of watch that. And sometimes you got to dig around and go find a different impulse response or that works well with the music that you're playing or the instrument or the performance. That's something that's an artistic decision that you have to decide yourself. So I've chosen this impulse response. I've got this medium hall, or I could have gone to that Taj Mahal or whatever. Let's just pretend this is the Taj Mahal. All right, so or the small Taj. It's a 1/4 size Taj Mahal plates that I'm playing in. Let's just pretend it's that. So what I'm going to do is, that way we don't have to deal with huge spatializations, because those are way more difficult to deal with. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this into it, just like I did in the last video. I'm going to bring it up till I hear it, and I'm going to go, I can hear it. I can hear it there. I'm going to A-B it back and forth. I might do this 2 or 3 times and go back and forth. Start out at 0 again, bring it up till I hear it. The understanding of this, the hard concept to get across to most people, is that for the most part, you bring it up, I can hear the effect. Okay, not much, but I can hear it barely. Now, you may want to just back off on that a little bit. And yeah, if I A-B it back and forth, I can still hear it's like in this 1/4 size Taj Mahal place, this jazz club or whatever. I can still hear it, but it's really imperceivable. The understanding of this is it might not be real perceivable, but when you add all those tracks together, it will be perceivable. They'll start adding up. And then on the end, when we go do processing at the end with this same signal chain that we're using here on the whole mix to put it in its place so it convolves all that together, not only are you using it here, but you're using it at the end processing chain before we go to mastering, that will convolve together to add it into this place to make it sound really rich, thick, and full. So if you didn't catch that, I'm doing this to this track, and then this same chain I'm going to use on the signal processing at the very end of my processing before I go to mastering. So I'm using that same spatialization again on all the tracks, and sometimes almost imperceivably. Sometimes it'll just be like 1, 2, 3%, just to try to convolve that together and add that together so it kind of glues them together without getting muddy. So that is a work of art. It's something that takes time getting used to doing. But I bring that up into there until I'm perceiving it, and I normally back off. Now, different than from the last video, I want you to be able to hear it. So I kick back and I go, okay, I've brought it up to where I hear it, and it's like I kick back, A-B it back and forth. Yeah, I can hear it space, I can hear it from space, and I'll back off some. And it's like, no, I can still hear it that it's there. A-B it back and forth. Now I can still hear that it's in that jazz club. If I go down any farther, no, I don't, A-B it back and forth. I can hear something, but I'm not hearing it's actually in some space that I've chosen. And so I bring it back up just a slight amount. Yeah, I can hear back and forth. It's in the space that I'm thinking of, but lightly, not real heavy, just kind of light. That's normally what you're looking for, because when you mix all those tracks together, it will multiply and cause this effect to multiply on all the other tracks into one combined sound that you're perceiving. Does that make sense? So really keep that in mind. So once you've got that set, you've got your chosen spatialization set, and you've set it up like that, then I'll use my echo effect again, just like I did in the last one, only this time I'm going to bring it up. I'm going to A-B this off of there, and I'm going to want to hear this. This time I'm going to bring it up in there. I can hear it. I'm going to A-B it back and forth. Yeah, I can hear it pretty good there. I'm going to back off a little bit, and then I'm going to listen. Yeah, I can hear it, but I don't, like almost barely. I mean, it's like almost nothing, and I'll probably bring it up just a tiny bit to where I can A-B it back and forth and go, no, yeah, I can hear this a little bit. It's not like an echo. I'm not hearing echo, but I mean, obviously, I'm definitely hearing some depth. Like there's like reverberation going on just slightly, not much. Does that make sense? I mean, a little bit more than you did the last time. What the effect of this is when you go through, you turn this off and listen to your convolution reverb that you would have bypassed when you're doing that work, and you bypass that off, then you go back here and you listen to it, yeah, like that, then you turn on that echo effect you got. It's going to add some other depth to it. The understanding of this is the same thing as the last video. You're adding that richness and fullness and depth all together, but a little bit heavier. Does that make sense? Now, this echo effect is more clean. It's way more clean of a spatialization reverberation kind of effect than the reverb. And sometimes I'll even go here and I'll go to like 1/16 or more, getting them closer together. But you got to kind of be careful of that. I've been found that a lot of times I'll stick around that 1/8, 1/4. I don't get this doubling effect going on, echo going on. It never worked out really well. And what it's doing, it's adding this clean kind of reverberation with the delay and used with that echo effect, and it's causing a rich kind of reverberation with the reverb. And now you've chosen that space and you've added a little bit of clean texture to it to give it more depth. And it comes out sounding awesome. Just remember to always go a little bit light, and it's really good idea not to render this, because later on in the mix, and save it as a preset, what you have set up to put it on all the tracks, because later on you're going to take all this stuff off of there, and then you're going to be doing some other processing that we're getting ready to talk about. You don't want to lose all those settings, so you got it set up as a preset so you can drag it back out on all the tracks, and then on some tracks you want to add a little bit more if you want something back farther in the mix or something closer in the mix. Does that make sense? So keep that in mind. So basically you've done your bodybuilding. It's rich, thick, full, and deep. And now you've done this to it to actually put it in the space. You've figured out the space. You've not put it in there heavy because you know the other tracks with that on it also are going to multiply that effect of it being in that place. And you've added a really slight delay echo effect to it to enhance it. It's a more clean, sound of reverberation, and just ever so slightly, and you come out with this really cool sounding track that it just sounds, all the work we've done is just awesome, and it sounds rich, thick, full, and deep, and it sounds like it's in this space that you've chosen the space. You've mixed in underneath it just a little bit of echo effect to just kind of give it a little bit more depth, and it's just awesome. And like I said, it just takes time of you practicing and experimenting with it to do a really good job of doing it. Just remember what I told you to do and practice doing that until you can get it done real well. Peace, hope, love. I hope you enjoyed this video on putting your track in its place, and I will see you in the next video.